inset here that has inscription in Latin of the story of Pilate, and that this was his official residence. So you imagine that Pilate would come from Caesarea, come all the way to Jerusalem for the, to sentence Jesus, and then he would possibly need to go back home. Maybe that's why he was in a hurry to wash his hands and go back. But that was an important thing. And again, Paul was arrested in Jerusalem and taken to Caesarea and imprisoned there for 2 years. So when it is that you see Felix, Festus, King Agrippa sentencing Paul, all that was happening in Caesarea. After that, in Acts 27 to 28, he was on his way to Rome, and that's where the book of Acts ended. By the way, the centurion who was in charge of Paul in that journey to Rome, his name was Julius. But do I say? And he was a good guy. He was a good guy. He gave Paul some liberties right there. Okay. Now, that thing that I learned and connected with Jesus about was in Caesarea Philippi. Maybe I could just let you see where that is so that we can be moving together. Where is it? Yeah, right here, up here. Okay. In Caesarea Philippi, Jesus had taken his disciples northwards. And this is the most northern part that Jesus took his disciples. It must have taken a few days to walk there. And he took them there for only one thing, to ask them, who do people say I am? And Jesus and Peter would answer, you are Christ, the Son of God. Let's just go there in Matthew 16 and read it together. I think this is something that I'd like us to identify with much more closely. Matthew chapter 16. We can start reading from verse 16. And it says, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? They replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. I can just imagine that, the disciples are saying, some are saying this, some are saying the other, it's like people are confused a little, and then he asked them this question, but you, what about you? Who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And that was such, an apt answer. Jesus says in verse 17, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I'll give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Man, this is amazing. When we went to Caesarea to see the so-called gates of hell that Jesus seems to be alluding to in this case. Now, in Caesarea Philippi, we found all these shrines. These are archaeologically discovered shrines of gods that were being worshipped at that time. Many Jews would not want to go to Caesarea Philippi. It was considered to be, quote unquote, gates of hell, because the worship of God Pan, worship of God Zeus, worship of Nemesis, and especially the god Pan, who was very evil, with a lot of wickedness, a lot of sexual immorality. So the Jews would not want to approach that. And Jesus and his disciples were very bold to actually go to Caesarea Philippi. And the reason is to ask this question. So when he says that the gates of hell, gates of hell shall not prevail against the church, then what they were looking at that very point would be the shrine of the god Pan, who was worshipped in a cave. And you can see that cave on the right side of the picture right there. And they'll be like, man, this place that we fear so much, this whole place that we do not want to come, this place that spells everything wrong with us, cannot overcome the church that Christ is going to set up. And I would connect with Jesus and ask myself, how which are these gates of hell for me that must be prevailed upon by my being a Christian? Do I know who Jesus is? Would I answer that question? Who is Jesus? Who is he? Many of us who are listening to me today, we were born as Christians. We've never really had to ask ourselves that question so well, because we never interacted with people who do not know him or who do not speak about him. If you were born in India or in Pakistan or in Turkey, where the predominant religion is not Christianity, perhaps you could have asked yourself that question more deeply: who is Jesus? But let's ask ourselves, do we know who he is? How would we connect with him if we do not know who he is? Is he Christ, the Son of the living God? Is he my Lord? Is he my Savior? Is he the one for whose church nothing can prevail against? Is he the one that we worship? He's the one that we are worshiping today. Is the church that we attended today, this evening, his church, that church that he said that shall not be overcome by the gates of hell, from Caesarea Philippi? Do I connect with Jesus Christ like that? Is that my connection with him, or what is it? That was my question there in Caesarea Philippi. Now, we went to a place called Bethel. The Hebrew name is Beit El. Beit, when you see the word Beit is house, Beit is house, El is God, house of God. In Genesis 28, verse 12, we can turn there and read it. Jacob is sojourning in that area. You know, Jacob was a waderer. I mean, a guy who would go around being told by God, go there, go there. And this time he's in the area of Bethel. He takes a stone and puts it on his head as a pillow. Very interesting. I saw Richard Aida trying to do that, to put a pillow below his head so that he can try and sleep, see whether he can get the same dream as Jacob did. And as he slept, the Bible says in verse 12, he had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I'll give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, blah, 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 blah. Verse 16. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, which is the gate of heaven. Now, that's how this place became known as Beit El. Its former name was not Beit El, it was something else. So he called it Beit El, is house of God. This is, I didn't know God is here. And then he put up this altar, very many stones, and put them together in a heap. This is what is this place that you can see on top there. The stones that Jacob put up there to commemorate the place of God, Bethel, house of God, or gates to heaven. Now, this was confirmed on another time he went there. God asked him to go back to Bethel, and that's when he wrestled with God for the whole night, and his name changed from Jacob to Israel in Genesis 35. Now, what else happened in Bethel and also in Dan? Remember, I told you Dan is up there in the border of Israel and Lebanon. Bethel was going to be the lower head of the kingdom of Israel after the kingdoms had split into two, Israel and Judah. Bethel was the lowermost part of that. So King Jeroboam, he put an idol, a golden calf, just like in Exodus, you know, a golden calf at Dan and a golden calf at Bethel. This is very ironic because the idea was people who are in this kingdom of the north will not be going to Jerusalem to worship. So he said, these are your gods. Don't go to Jerusalem. So there was then at Bethel again an idol that people would come and worship, and you can see a picture of that, right down there. But the part I want us to really see the connection between the Old and the New Testament in an amazing, amazing way is in John chapter 1, when Jesus meets Nathanael. Remember, Nathanael is the guy who asked, Nazareth? Can anything good come from Nazareth? Remember that guy? Okay, let's look at John chapter 1 from verse 46 and follow that conversation right there, because for me, it's extremely, extremely insightful, extremely important to the conversation you're having about connecting with Jesus. Okay, John 1, I'm just turning my Bible right here, verse 46. It says, this is Nazareth. He's just been told that it is Jesus of Nazareth, who they are going to introduce him to. This is Andrew and Philip. Nazareth, he says, can anything good come from there? Come and see, said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said to him, here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. How do you know me? Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Then Nathanael declared, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Jesus said, you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that. He then added, very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on who? On the Son of Man. Just the way angels were descending and ascending on Jacob back in the days, many, many thousands of years ago, you will, maybe 2000 by that time, you will see Nathanael, angels ascending and descending on Jesus. Jesus has become the new Israel. He is the one on whom I should build my faith. Israel failed. They failed because whereas God showed Jacob, Bethel, the house of God, they could not keep the covenant with God. The covenant that they had could not sustain that relationship, and it was desecrated by worship of other things because they could not continue to place their hope and trust in God. But there is a new Israel people. His name is Jesus. Can I put my faith in him? Can I connect with him? Can I have that bridge, that ladder that goes all the way to heaven, resting on the Son of Man? And I see angels of God ascending and descending, and I reaching to God through that same ladder on the Son of Man. Can I connect with Jesus as such? Not on any person, not on anything, not on any shrines, not on any physical things, but on the Son of God. That's my lesson about connecting with Jesus from Bethel. Lastly, Garden of Gethsemane. You can see the garden as it is today. We spent quite some time praying there, feeling the pressure that Jesus felt at that point. By the way, the word Gethsemane means the place of pressure. Remember, the Garden of Gethsemane is at the the lower end of the Mount of Olives. So the olives would be harvested and brought down to this place to be pressed so that oil can come out of it. So the pressure that is being talked about in Gethsemane is pressure on the olive fruits to produce olive oil, which Israel has a lot of. And that's something that Israel has in good measure. So Jesus comes to this garden and is arrested from there, and he would pray 3 times, falling down on his face and feeling the pressure for my sins, pressure for your sins. And praying from there was for me such a huge connection. And I uttered many, many prayers for many people, for all of us in the church. God, please help us. I know this is where Jesus came and felt pressure for me. May it count for something. May it be meaningful for me. But I want us to compare what happened with Jesus in that garden with someone else in 2 Samuel chapter 15. This is going to be extremely powerful, as it was to me. I hope so. If you turn to 2 Samuel chapter 15, we just read some few verses. This is the time that King David had been betrayed by his son Absalom. In the same way, in the garden, Jesus had been betrayed by his very good friend Judas. So Gethsemane then becomes a place of betrayal. A place of betrayal. Jesus was betrayed, and then King David was betrayed. So in 2 Samuel, I will read from chapter 15. I will read from verse 13, just a few verses. It says, in the course of time, Absalom provided himself with the chariot and horses. Okay, let me just read from verse 13. I was reading verse 1. Verse 13. A messenger came and told David, the hearts of the people of Israel are with Absalom. Then David said to all his officials who are with him in Jerusalem, come, we must flee, or none of us will escape from Absalom. We must leave immediately, or he will move quickly to overtake us and bring ruin on us and put the city to the sword. Okay. Then, in verse 23, the Bible says the whole countryside wept aloud as all the people passed by. The king also crossed the Kidron Valley, and all the people moved on toward the wilderness. What's happening here is David is in his palace, and he has to leave the palace empty, come down, cross the Kidron Valley. I can see the Kidron Valley because we crossed it several times, into the Garden of Gethsemane as he goes to the Mount of Olives. In the same way, Jesus leaves the upper room, crosses the Kidron Valley into the Garden of Gethsemane. So you start to see such parallels between Jesus and David that are striking and very, very powerful. Both of them were born in Bethlehem in Judah. One of them is a king, the other one is a king of kings. Jesus is betrayed by a friend. David had been betrayed by a beloved son. So painful for both of them. The agony that comes with being betrayed is in their hearts. Then the Bible says that as David walked, together with people, and both of them have people who are with them. But as David goes into the Garden of Gethsemane, he's weeping. And the Bible says that Jesus was sorrowful to the point of death. I'm not reading Matthew 26 because we are very familiar with it. But in verse 24, something happens that's also very, very telling. Zadok, as they were going, Shimei is the grandson of Saul. Verse 24. Okay, Zadok was there too. Zadok was the priest. And all the Levites who were with him were carrying the Ark of the Covenant of God. They set down the Ark of God, and Abiathar offered sacrifices until all the people had finished leaving the city. Verse 25. Then the king said to Zadok, take the Ark of God back into the city. If I find favor in the Lord's eyes, he will bring me back and let me see it and his dwelling place again. But if he says, I'm not pleased with you, then I'm not ready. Let him do to me whatever seems good to him. I mean, David is saying, let God do whatever seems right to him. I am surrendered to him. Whatever it is that he wants to do with me, I'm good. He is the Lord. I am in his hands. I've emptied myself of my being king. I just want God to, deal with it. He knows what to do. And whatever decision he makes, it's good for him. It's good for all of us. Jesus, in the Garden of Gethsemane, as he prayed, he would say, not as I will, but as you will, 3 times. I mean, it's amazing how both of them were so surrendered to God. When you go to chapter 16, you'll see how then David was cast by this guy called Shimei, and he would throw stones at him. And he would say in verse 7, chapter 16, get out, you murderer, you scoundrel. The Lord has repaid you for all the blood you have shed. Then in verse 9, Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, said to the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over and cut off his head. What did David tell Abishai when he wanted to cut off the head of Shimei? He said, verse 10, but the king said, what does this have to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? If he is cursing because the Lord said to him, curse David, who can ask, why do you do this? So in other words, David said, do not resist. And there's another guy in the Garden of Gethsemane who removed his sword and cut off the ear of the servant of the high priest. His name was Malchus. His name was Peter. People think that Peter actually missed the head. Otherwise, he wanted to cut off his head as well. But Jesus replaced the ear of Malchus, as you very well know. So Jesus told Peter, do not resist. So you can see the path that is marked out for David. He will follow it no matter what. The path that is marked out for Jesus, he will follow it no matter what. And the question for me and for you as we talk about connecting with Jesus, are we able to imitate him by following the path that is marked out for us no matter what? Sometimes it's not easy. The pressure might be too much, but will we do it? So in summary, this is what we've learned from Bethlehem, Nazareth, and Capernaum, the humility of Jesus. Connect with him by emptying ourselves of everything we have to the best extent that we can. That's how we can become more like him and connect with him. From Joppa to Caesarea Maritima, connect with Jesus by seeing how this is for me, not for anybody else. The sacrifice, the life, the love for me. If in Caesarea Philippi, I connect with Jesus by knowing who he is. Just like Peter would answer on that day, you are the Christ, the Son of God. You would appreciate the scope of his power. The gates of hell will not overcome me, will not overcome the church. This is how I connect with Jesus. From Bethel, I connect with Jesus as I put my faith on him. The ladder to heaven is placed on Jesus, and I can climb with the angels up and down. Not on individuals, not on shrines, not on money, not on anything else, but on him. As I put my faith on him, he is the new Israel. In Gethsemane, I connect with him as I understand the path that God has set out for me. As I walk in it in submission, no matter what. I hope this encourages us that indeed we can connect with him in many, many ways, including what I've shared today. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anula. Anula.
Yes. Wow, thank you so much, Dr. for that awesome class. Your visit to Israel has benefited us as well, and we are grateful. Thank you for putting together that class. I'll briefly go through, what I've learned today, briefly, because I wouldn't want to water down, the great class that I've shared. I'll start with the first statement that said that his magnificent life showed a total and absolute absence of pride, arrogance, and vanity. These are a challenge to me. It's very easy to be arrogant. It's very easy to be to have a lot of pride. It takes a lot of control for us to emulate Jesus in this area. Just trying to be free from pride, free from arrogance, and free from vanity. I pray that we can work on ourselves. I can work on myself, so that I can emulate Jesus in this area. There's a question here: to what extent can I empty myself of the things of the world to be more and more like Jesus? These are challenged because the current world, we everyone is, looking forward, amassing wealth, amassing what is around us. But we're being challenged here, to what extent can I empty myself of the things of the world to be more and more of Jesus, to live more and more like him? Because the reality is, we can spend all of our time, amazing all these that surround us and forgetting to be more like Jesus as we should be. Another thing was, it's for me that he came. That's a great reminder. It's for me that he died as well. This is one way for us to connect to Jesus, remembering or reminding ourselves that Jesus came because of us. Jesus died because of us. And for that, we need to live a life that implies that. There's this question, that the disciples were asking. Jesus was asking his disciples that, who do people say I am? And the question to me is, do I really know who Jesus is? It's so easy to say, yes, I know. But again, having a deeper thought about it, you may realize that there's more that we really need to learn about this. And so, do I really know who Jesus is? Or do you really know who Jesus is? And how can I connect with him when I don't know who he is? And so our current theme is connected, and we're being called upon to connect with Jesus. And this is a better place to start from, that really, do I know who Jesus is, and how can I, the challenge is, how can I connect with him when I don't know who he is? So the challenge is really, we need to know who Jesus is, not just knowing his name, because everyone will say he knows Jesus, but connecting with him and really living a life like what he wished for us. And then Jesus is the new Israel, and he is the person that I should build my faith on. When my faith is built with Jesus, then I'm certain that it's not going to crumble down, that it's going to stand, it's going to be stronger and stronger every day. And then the story of the Gethsemane, the place of pressure. I didn't know that it was a place of pressure, but just looking through, seeing how indeed there was pressure, him praying double or triple time that compared how he used to pray. Indeed, it was a place of pressure. And so Jesus did a lot of prayers at Gethsemane, and I'm sure he prayed for us as well, as Nguku has said. And so may that mean something to us. The pressure he went through, the struggle, the spiritual struggles he went through, the prayers he made for us, and all of those, may they mean something to us. And my last question, that I'm asking myself is, am I able to imitate Jesus by simply following the path marked out for us? It's very clear that there's a path marked out for us, and we are being called upon as disciples, and even those who might be here who are not disciples, we're being challenged today that we need to imitate Jesus by following the path marked out for us. There are so many lessons I'm sure that you've learned. I've just mentioned a few because, of course, I wouldn't want to go through the entire class as well. And so thank you so much, Nguku, for that class. Thank you for putting it together. I'm sure all of us have now benefited from the trip to Israel. And I'm sure there's even more and more. I think we just need to create time, I would guess so. And I wish the class can be shared to our WhatsApp group so that we can later on just go through keenly and continue learning more and more from the same. So we can appreciate the class from wherever you are. I know if you clapped, we won't hear the clap, but Dr. I feel appreciated, and I'm so grateful that God will use you that in such a great way to encourage us and remind us today. Thank you. So I'll go directly to the announcements. I have a couple of announcements here today. Announcement number one is, it was mentioned on Sunday, but I'll just go through again that there's a vacancy currently at church. And so for our friends or disciples, actually it's the first priority is being given to disciples, and it's about the HR position. There's a vacancy in HR position. Let me just open up the announcements so that I can read to all of us. It says that, oh, sorry for that. Seems I'm not getting, but then there is a vacancy. The vacancy is closing on Friday of 24th. So please, if you are planning to apply for this, make sure that you send your credentials, your CV, all those to the office by Friday, this Friday on 24th. Please let it not, if you are qualified, please let it not pass you. You can try out, and you never know. So there's that vacancy for HR, and then another one has just come in about just a minute, about an social media and graphic design intern. So maybe this one will be shared to our WhatsApp groups because the deadline is in March 3rd. It will be on a Friday, March 3rd at 4 p.m. So just if you are qualified, please consider applying for these positions. Number two, there is a Bible Talk Leaders meeting this coming Saturday. Bible Talk Leaders meeting. It's a while since we met as Bible Talk Leaders. And so this is another opportunity for us to connect, as Bible Talk Leaders. So please remember that we have a meeting this coming Saturday. Time is from 3 p.m. and it will be ending at 6 p.m. A reminder to us that please, if it's 3, let it be 3, so that you don't come in at 4, so that you don't come in at 5. You better come in at 2 so that you can prepare before the meeting starts at 3. So all Bible Talk Leaders meeting, please remember that we have a meeting on Saturday, all right, from Saturday, 3 p.m. And then another announcement. This is a huge one. I know some of us, actually I just talked to someone and he thought that Valentine's for marriage had already happened. I'm here to tell you that we have been preparing, we've been cooking, and it's now ready. We can now serve the Valentine's Day. Do I call it dinner or what?